Long before a Porsche was called a Porsche, we believed any car that merely got you from here to there just didn't go far enough. That belief, a little imagination, and a lot of hard work led us to build cars that set new speed records, set new design standards, set new expectations of what a car ought to be. All of which Professor Porsche considers a good beginning.
So what's up, guys? We have another video for you guys. Chris Honda coming at you with Paul Jarrett, the general manager for Gaudin Porsche. And Gaudin Porsche is spelled G-A-U-D-I-N, but pronounced Gaudin Porsche, like G-O-I-D-I-N. And Porsche actually should be pronounced as two syllables.
Two-syllable word, family word. Yes.
There you go. So Paul's going to take us on a facility tour of the dealership. It's a beautiful dealership out here in Las Vegas. And Paul, thank you so much for letting us feature you in the dealership here on my YouTube channel. So please go right on ahead and take us on a tour.
I'm really glad to have you guys here. I mean, it's an honor to have anybody here in our Porsche showroom. We've been around since 1922 is how long our family's been in business. George Gaudin started this business 98 years ago, and what's really amazing about that is he was actually a lettuce farmer in the Central Valleys of California. And so 98 years ago, he had been tinkering with some trucks at the time, and all the trucks at the time were rear-wheel drive cars, and they were getting bogged down in the mud after all the rains and things like that. And he actually took the truck and modified the truck and the cab and the transmission and created a front-wheel drive platform. And when Ford, we were a Ford dealer 98 years ago, got wind of that, they wanted that technology, and they asked George, what can we do for those patents, you know, what kind of money? And he says, I don't want your money, I want to become a car dealer. And that's how we got into the car business as a family-owned business. What's really cool about that is George Gaudin has had, you know, children and grandchildren, things like that, and his grandson Gary owns the dealership today, lives right here in Henderson, right next to Las Vegas. His office is right up there, and we see him all the time. So it's still a family-owned business, even after 98 years. So let me show you guys around a little bit. This Porsche Center was built about 5 years ago, so in 2015, September 2015. And it's actually our third Porsche location. So we took on the Porsche brand in 1986 over on East Sahara, and then we built a luxury center in 1999 on West Sahara, which is still there today. It's a beautiful Tuscan-inspired facility. But what's really fun about this Porsche Center is that it was one of the earlier Generation 4 Porsche centers, and everything about this place as we walk around was almost exactly the way that Porsche dreamt that a Porsche Center should look like. And even though when you build a Porsche Center, it doesn't have to hit all the marks, just has to hit a few for you know, what's called corporate identity or CI, we hit almost all the marks. So you all out there are used to a lot of different brands. You guys have been to a McDonald's or a Starbucks around, and they all look somewhat similar. Well, in this case, we decided we would build it just the way that they dreamt it would be built. So keep your eyes on the walls and the colors and things like that, and you'll really understand what Porsche was thinking when they were thinking of a new Porsche Center. So let me walk you guys around a little bit, and I think the main thing that's exciting for you all are the automobiles. So welcome to the museum is what I like to say. I'll give you kind of some of the ideas here. We have a 1994 964 wide body. There's only about 29 just like this in the world. So obviously a very rare car. Beautiful wide body like I mentioned there. This is a 996 GT2. You don't get to see those very often. A lot of people make the joke that this was the final Widowmaker car because it was a twin turbocharged rear-wheel drive manual transmission 911. and it doesn't have a whole lot of those driver assistance packages like they do today. So it's quite an exciting and thrilling automobile.
Wow, so this is the final Widowmaker.
Well, I mean, that was kind of the talk of the 911 turbos. So you can see, for example, that red 911 turbo over there, which really made the 911 very famous with a turbocharged engine and things like that. But when you put a rear engine on a car that's rear-wheel drive and then is also turbocharged, it's not the most stable thing, especially in the 70s. Over time, we've refined the balance and handling, and we know that the 911 is the benchmark sports car. Everybody knows that. But this one, the GT2, was really the last year where it didn't have all those extra driver assistance. We call them nannies.
Yeah.
It doesn't have all of those things. So this car, you really need to be in tune with the car and with the balance of the car, and it can definitely surprise you. So this
is the driver's car, as we say.
This is the driver's car, my friend, right here, twin turbocharged. We're going to spend a little time on this. This is one of the most rare Speedsters. This car was only made in 1989. This particular generation of the Speedster, the first 911 Speedster, actually. And since we're looking at it, everything about this car is absolutely exclusive. That's what Porsche calls things that were done with special wishes. They're done one at a time. So the color itself, the ruby red metallic, was customized, but everything inside this car, from the leather to even the color of the piping on the seats. Look at that center console. You're not going to see a 911 with a center console like that, where they put the custom leather in there, and the way that the buttons and switches were added and the gauges. Virtually everything on this car. On top of that, it only has 5,000 miles.
This is 5,000 miles.
5,000 miles on a 1989.
On an 89. I love this whole Speedster.
The double bubble look.
The double bubble, yeah.
The two-seater, yeah. Everything about the Speedster is unusual, too. The Speedster itself had a more raked windshield, a curved windshield. The side windows are a different shape to give it that more aggressive slope
Speedster look, right?
Yeah, and it's one of the most famous things that Porsche ever did. They really became famous with the 550 Speedster in the 50s. So they were, the idea of the Speedster was something that Porsche really made famous.
I believe the back part, is that called like the buttress, the flying buttress? Is that how they call that? I don't remember if that's the right term for it, but
yeah, no, I don't think of that one. You might be thinking of with the whale tail maybe, or the T-tray that they had on the turbocharged 911s.
I see.
For example, this turbo is one of the first generation 911 turbos, which the first generation was built from 1975 to 1977. And again, that's when the turbo first came out with the 911. And ironically, what's unusual, people don't realize, is they think of the 911 turbo as starting in 1976. Well, that's the year it came to the United States, but it actually originated in 1975. And we actually have one of those in our private collection. But you can tell the difference between that first generation and the next with this wing back here. So a lot of people call this
they call this the whale tail.
Well,
correct?
That's what they call almost all of them, but not in this case. This is actually
not
called
in this case.
the T-tray is actually what
T-tray.
they call it. It's a lot smaller.
Wow.
So as we walk over there, I'll point out what a whale tail looks like. It's much larger, and what they had to do with the whale tail was to be able to fit the intercooler. So the first few years of the 911 turbo did not have an intercooler, which makes the turbocharger more efficient. Right. So this one was just turbocharged without an intercooler, right? This particular car has a leather to sample interior.
This is, unbelievable. This is mint. The paint on this is phenomenal.
Yeah, well, you'd expect nothing less from Gaudin Porsche as a Porsche Classic partner. So let me walk you around a little bit more. We do have a Carrera MFI here, which is another famous car, which is mechanically nearly identical to the very famous 1973 RS. I'm sure a lot of folks out there know what that is. We actually have a poster of the RS up there on the left-hand side of the walls. And so this car is mechanically very similar, but this car is registered in the International Carrera MFI registry. So it's a very famous car. It was originally ordered for a prince in the Middle East. It has a paint to sample exterior, leather to sample interior. It even has factory air conditioning, which back in the 70s was very expensive to add to a car, many thousands of dollars. And you can imagine what that is in today's dollars, just to add air conditioning.
Absolutely. And what does MFI stand for by any chance?
Multi-port fuel injection. So it's a much more efficient way to deliver fuel to the engine. And back in these days, almost everything was carbureted. So to have a multi-port fuel injection made things more efficient, more powerful. more exciting to drive.
Absolutely, and look at that,
So,
guys.
This car,
Beautiful.
my friend, this we believe is the only car of its kind in North America, and I'll tell you why. So this is a 993 generation 911. It's the Carrera RS. You can see it's got the Club Sport package in there as well with the factory roll cage. Well, this car, when we imported this car from Europe, it had not been done before because we were the ones that had to actually apply for the show and display permit. And so the show and display permit is something that's very unusual. So if you import a car that's less than 25 years old, it cannot be done under normal importation rules.
Right.
And so what you have to do is apply for a show and display rule, which says that you're only going to utilize it for the betterment of the public good and understanding. You're not going to be driving as an everyday type of a driver. And actually what's really funny about that, you all should look this up, but that permit was actually ushered through and created with the help of Jerry Seinfeld and with Bill Gates.
Wow.
Because they wanted to get 959. You guys need to look up a Porsche 959 into America. So because the U.S. Customs did not even have this car listed, we had to be the first ones to put it in. So we do believe this is the only one that's legally been imported to the
Legally
United States.
been imported. And this is a Euro spec, right?
Yeah.
This
Oh,
is
yes,
definitely
European only. Yep.
European only. Wow, this is beautiful. Club Sport, meaning this is the super light version for race, correct?
Lightweight racing concept. It is a road legal car because it has the right lighting and things like that. But again, yeah, the car was really a singular purpose. I mean, it is a weapon.
It is a track weapon.
Yes, from the mid '90s. So since we're over here, I should show you as well that whale tail that we mentioned. Some other cars over there. But you can take a look here when you start to put an intercooler on a car. You've got a significantly larger spoiler there because you need to actually be able to fit the intercooler, which you can actually just see through those grates there. And so that design started in 1978 model year. Although this, of course, is from the early 90s. This is a 964 turbo. A lot of you guys will remember this from the movie Bad Boys. This style of car, that was a turbo 3.6, which we also had and sold. But this car also is paint to sample.
This is a beautiful example. And the museum piece over here on the dealership, all the cars are for sale, correct?
In this case, all these cars are for sale. We do have more vehicles that we utilize for events and marketing and for more of a private collection. But as a Porsche Classic partner, which we'll talk about soon, these cars have been refurbished by us and have been certified to be in excellent operable condition for everyone out there. So
factory restored. That's beautiful.
Well, by us in a lot of cases. But let's take a look over here, my friend, a little bit of our new cars. We have the all-new 911 here, the 992 generation, which I must tell you, the previous generation 991 was absolutely thrilling, but the 992 was an exceptional improvement on that benchmark sports car. It is a noticeable improvement on its ride handling characteristics. This is a very rare car. This is called a 718 Spider. So this is part of the GT category of Porsches, and there are many different GT categories of Porsches, but this one is based on the open-top roadster concept, and if you take a look at the back of the car, it's reminiscent of a Speedster with that kind of a double-bubble look to it when the top is down.
This is beautiful.
This car's more intended with the top down. It's actually fitted with a 4-liter flat 6 cylinder with about 400 horsepower. Now the reason why that's really cool is because this generation of Porsche is based on the 718, which is an almost all 4-cylinder model line. So it uses a turbocharged 4-cylinder. The cars perform wonderfully, but Porsche is pretty famous for their flat 6 cylinders. So in the GT iteration of the 718, they came out with the 6 cylinders again, but instead of the normal size 6 cylinders, this is a 4-liter 6-cylinder, which is reminiscent of the GT3 Porsche.
Wow.
Speaking of GT cars, this is one of the most rare GT cars in America. This is a GT3 RS, but what makes it so rare, for one, it is actually a new car, so we believe it to be the only new car that has never been titled. But also, in addition to that, it has about $30,000 in what's called custom tailoring options. And it really takes a Porsche-ophile to be able to see the differences. If you saw a GT3 RS parked next to this GT3 RS, you might start to pick those differences out. But what I can tell you is that what you're looking at here is exceptionally unusual. So let's take a look, for example, at the script on the side of the car. So that GT3 RS was specified just for this automobile.
Wow.
And it's from the 997 generation. It's from the 2007 GT3 RS. It's obviously the theme of black and red. Take a look at the center caps really quick. So all the center caps come with normal colorways. Well, this one was specified with a red RS, and that was done at
that's
the factory.
beautiful. And this is that center lock wheel, right?
That is, of course, the center lock wheel, which is motorsport derived. They look amazing.
Amazing.
So take a look at even the bottom of the.
So all the
side.
red accents are all
that was
specific
done
for this car?
By Porsche, yes. And one more thing here, back of the wing. I mean, there's many more things to look at on this car, but all these cars with the Visoc package. Visoc means the exposed carbon fiber, and the lightning package. You've got an exposed carbon fiber hood and roof. But back here, the Porsche is always in black. It's got a Porsche.
The Porsche sign is in black usually, correct?
But this car was fitted specifically in red.
I love the red.
And then these wingtips are in a black plastic. This one's been finished in a smooth and painted surface in red as well.
This is a beautiful
take
example.
a peek on the inside real quick here. We gotta get that unlocked. But
that carbon hood and
yeah.
the roof is amazing.
Yeah, finally. Oh, let me tell you one more thing about this car. So, what's really rare about this car was having both a Visoc package and the magnesium wheels. So the Visoc package is a lightning package, like I mentioned. You can tell immediately by the hood and the roof and the spoiler. But in addition to that, these magnesium wheels here are very rare to find on these cars. They're heavily lightened, and those two packages alone are over $30,000 in options, let alone the custom tailoring. What's really amazing about the GT cars is that every GT car is developed theoretically by a new set of people at Visoc. Visoc is the testing facility for Porsche. And in the case of the GT3 RS, the generation before this in 2016 was developed around the same time as the 918 Spider supercar. Now that car had so many technologies that Porsche had never used before. And so the mission behind this particular car was, how do we take some of the technology from the 918 and put it into a 911? So this car at the time was amazing because it had the same wheel sets. In 2016 it had 20-inch wheels in the front and 21s in the back. That had never been done on a 911. The actual rubber compound from the tires were specified and built only for the 918 for the type of stress and
rubber
needs.
specific compound
The
for
specific
this
compound
car.
for the 918. And they took that exact same wheel set in terms of the size and the rubber and put it on the GT3 RS. So they kind of thought, even the carbon composite drive shaft was from the 918 Spider in terms of its technology and materials. This car is all about downforce. So the GT3, a lot of you guys know, is a track-focused 911. Well, this car is significantly more focused. It's much more of a weapon, as I mentioned. You can see some of the downforce elements here with the knock vents to help get some air out of the front of the car. But my favorite ones here are over the front fenders. So think about this, guys. Every time you're driving your car, if you're driving it fast or not, the front fenders will always develop a lot of air. There's a compressed air underneath the front fenders, which contributes to the car lifting off the ground a little bit. Well, this car has air vents here, so the air, that compressed air, can escape and help push the car down even lower.
Oh, so the front stays planted.
That's right. The downforce.
And we all know driving fast, the front end gets light.
That's right. That's right. As we keep walking, one of the most amazing cars that Porsche ever made is the 911, 991 generation Speedster. We talked about the 89 Speedster over there. This is the one and only year of this generation, the 2019 Speedster. This particular vehicle is fitted with a paint to sample as well, which means it was painted one-off just for this car, in oak green metallic.
That green is beautiful.
Thank you. They only made 1,948 of this generation Speedster, which harkens back to Porsche's first year of building cars, which was in 1948, which we're going to talk about in just a couple minutes. A little bit more about this building. So we, as Gaudin, we're very famous of the theme of creativity and innovation. Sometimes it's on purpose and sometimes it's accidental. In the case of the Carrera Cafe, it was by accident. So our owner, Gary Ackerman, originally started his career in the car business. Although it was a family business, he went to actually learn a lot of the business from another family down in Southern California, the Galpin Motors Group. And they have a restaurant there called the Horseless Carriage. So Gary always liked the idea of having an actual restaurant facility for the guests. And it wasn't specifically just for the food, but it was more to continue on the guest's day. So if they should come in for an oil change, some maintenance or something like that, he wanted to make sure the day was still continuing along. So he pitched to Porsche to put in a fresh food option. Now, this is a real cafe here. We've got boar's head meats, salad specials, all those normal types of things that you would have at a cafe. But when he pitched this to Porsche to put it in a Porsche center, he thought he was crazy, or they thought he was crazy. Like, why would you have food in a car dealership? But he said, here are the reasons why. And they said, okay, so they approved that. That was one of the few exceptions in this building, on the Generation 4 building. Well, then when we were going to actually open the building, we thought we need a name. We thought of Targa Bar, which plays on our 911 Targa. And then we thought of Carrera Cafe. We thought it'd be a little bit more fitting. Well, that's where Porsche put their foot down. They said, you're not using our name, our logo, Carrera, for the name of your restaurant. You're not doing that. We said, that's fine, no problem. So we built the building, we kept the sign down, then we had our grand opening party. Now, a lot of people from around the world came to our grand opening party because it was one of these newer Generation 4 stores. All the way from Europe, around the country. A lot of executives were here. We had our grand opening party. The following day, we put the sign up. Take a look at that sign, the Carrera Cafe.
This beautiful sign, by the way.
We're pretty proud of it. Well, we figured everybody had left, if we have the sign, we're going to put it up. So we put up the sign, and then over the next few months, other Porsche executives were in Las Vegas. I wonder why they come to Las Vegas, but for birthday parties, conventions, things like that. And they thought, well, let's go see this new Porsche center we've heard of. So they came in, taking the same tour you all are taking today. And I remember them taking pictures of this Carrera Cafe sign and thinking, I don't know where this is going to go. But at that time, we'd already been open for a while. Everyone's about their careers and their lives. And they were like, this is a great idea. So now Porsche, skip ahead today, has 2 experience centers, one in Los Angeles and one in Atlanta. Both of them have a very fancy restaurant at the top floor. One of them is called the 356. One of them is called the 917, which are based on a couple of famous cars, of course. But on the bottom floor of both of those, they have a more casual cafe, and they're both called Carrera Cafe.
Very nice.
Thanks to this one.
So this is the first right here, a beautiful cafe, great food. Nothing better than hanging out, getting your car serviced, and eating at the cafe. That's awesome. And this place is beautiful. Look at the big screen TVs, the lounge rooms, and you can see a peek to when your car is getting serviced.
Well, this is actually my favorite part of the tour. Is this room, and I'll tell you why. So you can obviously see into the workshop. You can see what's happening in the workshop. You can see it's neat and tidy and things like that. And we happen to have 2 very, very special cars to take a peek at. You remember earlier I mentioned the very first year of the 911 Turbo. Well, that's one right there. That's a 1975 911 Turbo, and you will not see that often. That car was brought here from Japan.
Wow.
And that car was not for sale in America at that time, so that's very rare. And of course, the famous Carrera GT, the supercar from the 2004.
I love that root beer brown color of back in the 70s. It's great? Beautiful, yeah.
Copper brown metallic.
Copper brown metallic.
And you can't see the inside, but it has a tartan material on the inside, which was called Dress Mackenzie tartan.
Oh, wow.
So the interior is stunning on that car.
That Carrera GT is no slouch either, guys. Look at that. It's beautiful.
My personal favorite road-going Porsche.
That's one of the best sounding cars. I was just going to say.
I'm telling you. That car was actually developed to be used, not that exact car, but the technologies, the motor and things like that was developed to be used in Le Mans around the year 2000. Due to various reasons, they were unable to use a lot of those technologies in Le Mans, so Porsche decided to make a road-going car. So that's why the car is so extreme and sounds so incredible. I mean, it was truly, actually based in racing. So, but let me tell you more about this window. So we call this the window to the kitchen, where we cook and prepare our product. But how it came about is really the most incredible story. So in the mid-90s, Gary was talking about moving our luxury brands from East Sahara here in Las Vegas to West Sahara. And so he wanted to build, stay with me here, a luxury car center that was a 5-star hotel that sold cars and had no hotel rooms. So he took his team of architects all around the country, from Hawaii to Southern California to Florida and things like that, to get inspiration on how to build a luxury building that's actually a car dealership. And they were inspired most by the Ritz-Carlton in Laguna Niguel. So if you were in town and you went up to that building, which is still up there at 7200 West Sahara, you'll see the Tuscan and Italian inspired facility. I mean, we're talking stained stained concrete and the big pillars and the large house fountain with the automobiles parked around it, things like that. And Gary, in his time when he was going to build this, he said, what can we do to improve the guest experience? So he got together focus groups and sales and service and things like that. And in the service side of things, he said, what can we do to make your experience better? And they said, we wish we were more connected to our Porsches. You know, at that time, most Porsches were 911s, and these were members of people's families. And so if you came into a car dealership, oftentimes you'd meet the service writer, but your car would disappear for 4 hours or 4 days, and it would come back, and that would be about it. You don't really know who's working on it, things like that. So he said, well, what if we built a service department that had a window into the workshop, and we had a system where you got to meet the person actually working on your car and the shop foreman, and everyone thought that was a great idea. But now remember, transparency was not a part of our culture in the mid-90s. Right. If you went to a fancy restaurant or something like that, you didn't see the kitchen and the chef. Nowadays you do, but take it back to the mid-90s, you didn't. So imagine building a car dealership with a window into a workshop, and workshops look nothing like this, obviously, in the mid-90s. So beautiful. Obviously, this didn't go over really well 25 years ago with the manufacturers, with technicians, things like that, but our guests wanted it, and Gary said, I'm sorry, we're going to do this. And it was a big deal architecturally to put the fire doors and the safety and things like that directly into the showroom. Well, we did it, and it took about 4 years for the manufacturers to sign off on it. They ended up becoming fans. It was 2003, but stay with me here. 2013, I personally, Paul, was sent to Germany to just see a lot of things in person, how things work, the manufacturing facilities, the factories, things like that. And during that, at the beginning, they were doing introductions, and there was people from Scotland and Japan. I said, I'm from the States. And they said, where in the States? And I said, Las Vegas. And they said, Las Vegas? That's where the window to the kitchen concept was started. That's great. And I was like, what is she talking about? I have no idea what she's talking about. Well, a couple days later, they're showing us photographs of various Porsche centers around the world and best practices and how Porsche centers should look and operate. And there was a slide that came up, and it was a photograph of our previous dealership, the one that was built in 99, and that window. And it said, the window to the kitchen concept originated in Las Vegas, USA. Another Vegas first. And they went on to tell me more about it, and I was like, I didn't know this story. I knew about the window, but I didn't know about the story. So I get back, and Gary, our owner, comes to me and says, wow, how was your trip to Germany? You know, what did you learn? I said, we'll talk about that later. Forget that. What's the story about this window to the kitchen? You know, he's like, oh, I forgot to tell you that story. And he told me the story then, in 2013, the story I'm telling you today, where we accidentally innovated something that Porsche wants in all their Porsche centers. And that is a window into the kitchen, into the workshop. Beautiful history on that, Paul. Thank you. Isn't that fun? Yeah, that was great. So, a couple more little items, and we'll talk about the real reason you're here, those Outlaws. But we'll get to that in a moment. So, over here, in almost all Porsche centers, Porsche swag, guys. Yeah, Porsche swag. We'll get to that. Yeah, but in almost all Porsche centers, you'll have an opportunity to enter into the executive fitting lounge. We can do almost anything you can imagine in a Porsche. I could put your signature in the door sill guards. I could put any color of leather. I could match your wife's purse to the car, anything you could think of. But here, when you have an executive fitment, we'll have you here with your family, your friends, and we'll get all the samples out. We'll get it up on a 4K screen on 3D. We'll get some amenities out for you guys and have a really good time. You get to watch your Porsche coming across the ocean through the Panama Canal, and it's really a really fun experience. That is amazing. Look at all the colors. Oh, that's just the beginning. That's just including seat belts, gear shift knobs. Seat belt colors, leather colors, gear shift knobs. I mean, you can put special embossing on the center console, the headrest. I mean, even look at this. You can specify the colors of the air vents and things like that. But I love looking at these here. You can take even the air vents on the car, and you can wrap them in the leather of the car. You can wrap the air vents in leather. You can paint them the color of the car, any color you want. You can even do like leather stitching, custom stitching, again, leather air vent slats. Just a couple of the examples of some of the ways we can customize your Porsche. I want a Porsche. So over here we do have some Porsche swag, as you mentioned, a very popular place for holidays and birthdays. But Porsche merch, guys. Beautiful store. Oh, and sunglasses. Cool. Yes. So actually, I want to talk about that very briefly. So Porsche Design is here inside of the Porsche Center in Las Vegas. Well, that sounds nice. And Porsche Design, though, is a brand that a lot of folks don't know the history of. And the gentleman who created Porsche Design is not the Porsche that you think of. His name was Bootsy Porsche, not the original Dr. Porsche that started the company, but it was his grandson. And he was interested more in the accessories and the lifestyle of Porsche, and he ended up actually leaving Porsche, the manufacturer, to create his own brand. And he always wanted Porsche Design to kind of stand on its own as a brand, kind of like some of those other fancy brands you see in the high-end areas around the world, you know, the Louis Vuittons and the Fendis and Tom Fords and the like. But Porsche Design never really fancied themselves to be inside of a car dealership. They wanted to be a separate brand. Well, that changed a couple of years ago. They started thinking about, hey, maybe we should put the Porsche Design inside of a car dealership, but where in the world could we do that? Where in the world could we put our brand inside a car dealership to give this a try and see how it works? And they gave us the opportunity. So to this minute, at this very second that we're on this video, this is the only Porsche Design facility inside of a Porsche car dealership in the entire world. So we're very proud that it's here. Yes, it has, you know, your timepieces and your sunglasses and your lifestyle accessories, but the fact that it's sitting here, it's the only one. There is another one in Stuttgart, but that is a factory store. But in terms of an independent operating car dealership, this is it.
Another Vegas first. Beautiful store. I love those sunglasses.
I know. I'll have to get you some before you get out of here. So, speaking of first, Vegas first, I know we mentioned Classic for quite a while, but one thing I do want to make sure I point out is that Porsche Classic is a brand that operates independently of the regular Porsche brand. The biggest thing to say about Classic is that it maintains an incredible parts catalog, about 52,000 parts. That number sounds like a big number. What does that really mean? Think about the fact that you're trying to support automobiles that were built 20, 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And what if you need a part for it? They don't just sit on racks on shelves. They have to be maintained and rebuilt, maybe as new, maybe better than new. And you can't just like go to a manufacturer and find parts from the 50s and 60s. It must be done today. And a lot of the blueprints, a lot of the schematics of the parts that were made in the 50s and 60s, they're long gone. They may have been made by a father and son in a garage in Germany somewhere. So we have to find those and then find manufacturers that are interested in making parts that are that old. So it's a lot of work to create the brand. But the point is, Porsche Classic is so many things, but we are the very first Porsche Classic partner in all of North America. We always will be. We achieved our charter in 2016. Although we've always been into classic Porsches, but officially we're the first classic partner in North America.
So basically you can now, I guess, show the classic Porsche parts. You're able to let them be sold to the public.
Certainly, yes, exactly right. So say you have a 1967 911 and you need, a new alternator or something along those lines, we're going to be able to find those things for you in the catalog. They actually have a special catalog called the Originale catalog, and we're going to be able to get those parts for you up to those 52,000.
I'm sure the trim parts is where most classic Porsches probably are more hard to find. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, classic, it goes a long way. Like, for example, we talked about the 1973 RS Carrera. A really unknown fact about that car is the really wide rear fender flares. That was not made at the body shops. That was not made stamped. Those were all modified. They took regular 911s and they literally cut the rear fenders out. And then they fabricated those fender flares and then they re-welded it to a 911. And they stamp welded it. And that's how those cars were made in 1973. So today, if you're going to restore, in this example, a 1973 RS and you needed those rear body panels, they are going to recreate it exactly the same way as it was in 1973. They take the regular body, they cut the fender flares that already exist, and then they fabricate the correctly shaped ones and then stamp weld them today. Exactly the same it was in 1973. So it's truly a recreation of the original in the exact same way the original was made.
That's excellent.
This is the real reason why we're here, I think, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is really why we're here. I'm glad you made it this far.
Yeah.
Because it was well worth the wait.
Absolutely.
Behold, this is a stunning opportunity. These if you all are not familiar with Rod Emery and the Emory Outlaws and the Emery Specials and his father Gary and Porsche Parts Obsolete, you need to look all these things up. We don't have time today. But let's just say Mr. Emery makes some of the most incredible automobiles in the whole wide world. But one thing he had never done before are a true his and hers delivery. And the reason why I hesitate there is there's been some his and hers cars made, but never made same time, never made with the same visions, never delivered at the same time. These are the his and hers Emory Outlaws, guys.
Emory Outlaws.
Now, when you first walk up to them, it's natural to think that they're very similar. You know, you've got two 356s here. They're finished in black. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of things to talk about with them by just taking a look at them, but there's so much to talk about. The main thing here is that there is a massive difference in these cars, and that is that this is a 1954 and that one's a 1958. But those 4 years, that means a lot. This is a pre-A 356, a 356 pre-A.
Pre-A.
And there's so many things different about this car, and I'll give you a couple of quick examples if you guys ever run into a 356. But the odds of you finding a pre-A are going to be pretty low. But take a look, for example, I'll just start up here at the sunroof and at the windshield. You'll notice there's a bit of a peak there. That's because the 356 was first built in the late 40s in Gmünd, Austria. And you got to look up some of the history there. It's really incredible. But they were hand built at the time. Porsches were. And so a lot of the design features that Porsche wanted was able to be done because they were hand built. It wasn't until the mid-50s when the A, we're about to look at that, was built that they started building them really in the factories and manufacturing a lot more of them. It was at that time they realized that some of the design features, like the bent window you see here and the peaked sunroof, was maybe not that realistic in a higher volume vehicle. They only built about 7,000 of these, and I think the next generation they built 15, 20,000, and many more after that. So you're not going to see a lot of these design features on a lot of the other cars coming up. And by the way, when the 356 was first built, it was a split window. There was actually an element here, and it had like two windshields, if you will, split.
Wow.
A little bit later, they had what's called a bent window, so it still had a similar look to it. This car even functions mechanically a lot different. When you go to start it, here, I'll open up for you.
Look at that interior. It's amazing.
Yeah. Look at the dash. The dash is truly exceptional.
I love that Porsche emblem in the beginning. Right there. Beautiful. And the houndstooth.
Houndstooth inserts, of course. Very period correct for Porsche. But so starting this car is even a lot different. So everyone knows Porsche has the ignition switch on the left-hand side, so on and so forth. This one is also on the left. But it's a three-step process to start this car, but not the regular 356s, just the pre-As, the earlier ones, where you have to turn the ignition key on. Then you have to take a switch and pull to get the fuel pump started. And then it has a push-button start. You can see the little black button underneath the speed the tachometer there.
Oh, I see, right there.
So it's a push-button start from the factory, because that's how you connected the ignition there, and that's how the car started. And you know, driving it, starting it, it's pretty intuitive. But every other car, including this one over here, the 1958, you just turn the key. But this one's a three-step process.
It's like a race car where you have to get the fuel pump to go turn it on.
That's how it was back then. Since we're back here, a couple other things about the pre-A. This is how a lot of back here is Rod Emery hallmark, and a lot of it is not. You know, these extra louvers here and the rear grille there, that's a Emery hallmark.
It's beautiful.
Of course, the motor, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. But if you take a look at the taillights there, those are called beehive taillights. And that was, well, those are original, but that's period correct from that year.
Period correct. The glass on this is so beautiful. I can just imagine how hard it is to get that front glass.
Well,
with the peak.
Oh, right. Well, another thing that's very hard with these front bumpers, take a peek at these bumpers. So the bumpers looked nothing like that at the time. Well, they looked something like that, but they were significantly...
Are these molded in?
Well, not exactly. So they were much further away from the car, of course. But Rod, one of his famous elements here is they kind of refabricate the bumpers to match the body perfectly. So it's a very, very smooth look.
Very nice. So it's kind of flush with the body.
It's like an integrated bumper.
Very nice.
And I hope you all took a good look at this car, because there's one thing about this car that it does not have. One thing it's missing.
What is missing?
Chris, did you notice anything? Take a look at the front of this car.
The badge.
The crest.
The crest.
The Porsche crest is absent. And why would it be absent?
Is it because it's a Pre-A or?
Well, yes. The Porsche crest is not on this car because the Porsche crest did not exist when this car was manufactured.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's a great piece of history right there.
In 1954, the Porsche crest, actually it was right about that time that the Porsche crest was being drawn. And the Porsche crest was originally drawn in a New York City bar by Dr. Porsche and by a gentleman named Max Hoffman, who was the very first Porsche importer into the United States. And he was very passionate about Porsche. But remember, Porsche had only been building cars for a few years. I mean, they were tiny. And Max Hoffman told Dr. Porsche, he said, you need to think about not if you take a look here, you got his name on the car. But he's like, you need something more recognizable, some sort of a logo. And they came up with this idea of like maybe some sort of a crest of arms, but for the car company. And they started drawing it. Literally on a napkin, it's like right out of a storybook.
That's
so
an amazing story.
And if you take a look at this Porsche crest, which is from 1958, the crest actually came out in the mid-50s, but it's significantly different. When you first look at it, you're like, oh yeah, there's a Porsche crest. No, this is much different than they are today. For one, it's significantly smaller. Originally, they were very, very small. The Porsche there is all in gold. Now it's in black. The colorways are a lot different. But there's been a lot of evolution of the Porsche crest over the years. But this car has the Porsche crest because at that time, the Porsche crest was finally on the cars.
Finally on the car.
So that's a huge difference between the cars. There are other differences. The shape of the hood, the lighting. You'll see on the back of this car, it has teardrop lights instead of those honey.
Oh, the beehive?
Yeah, the beehive.
And I could tell the front windshield is a lot flatter than...
Yeah, here it's a smooth curved windshield.
Smooth curve.
It's more standard rectangular sunroof here. This car's finished a little differently.
I love these seats. These are gorgeous.
This is hers. That was his. This is hers.
So this is the her. Okay, this is the her version of the 356. Beautiful, beautiful car.
So take a look at the wheels on this one. This is another another Emery trademark there. Now, the motor. Okay.
Wow, beautiful.
So obviously,
twin downdrafts.
Obviously in perfect condition. It's brand new, but this motor is a major part of the car. So this motor originally started as a flat 6-cylinder, a 911 6-cylinder motor, and what Rod Emery does is he actually cuts the motor at 2 of the cylinders and leaves 4. So this is actually a flat 4-cylinder. Now the 356s came with 4 cylinders, flat 4 cylinders. They came with 45 horsepower roughly at that time, 33 to 45, depends on if it was a 1300, 1600, but this particular car came with 45 horsepower or so back when it was delivered new. Now with Rod Emery's help, and this 4-cylinder has around 200 horsepower.
Wow.
So we're talking almost 5 times the horsepower. So you can start to get a feeling of
this
what
car
type of performance
scoots.
it has. Oh, and another thing is it's still thoroughly modern. So not only does it have, a thoroughly modern powertrain, but it even has air conditioning and a stereo. And the air conditioning is electrically made, so there are no compressors in here. The air conditioning is inside the front bonnet there.
Electrical air conditioner. Wow.
Yeah, electric AC. Yeah,
electric AC. That's the first for me.
That's very cool.
Very cool. And are these cars staying here in the Las Vegas area, or will these be going out to like the his and hers somewhere else in the country?
They are for their personal use, and they should be hitting the road here very shortly. So I'm glad you all had a chance to come out and take a peek at them before they got out on the road. We're very proud of them, and they just took delivery about a week and a half ago, so they're just here right now until it cools off a little bit, and then they're going to be heading out into the open road.
So, Paul, how long will you have these on display, and so people can come down and see them? How much longer?
It's September of 2020 right now, and I would expect that come October of 2020 they'll be gone. So I'd recommend come and taking a personal look.
Absolutely, come down to Gaudin Porsche, guys, and check out their cars and come buy one.
Well, Chris, thanks for coming down today, and it's really good to meet you and to have the audience here in our fantastic Porsche Center.
Thank you for the facility tour, the history of the dealership, and all the beautiful cars. So guys, come see this video. Please subscribe if you can, and hit the like button. I'm going to go and take a couple of pictures out here so that we can do a photo collage after the video. And Paul, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Chris.
Have a great day. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey guys, Chris Honda here. Thank you for watching the video. I just want to say thank you to Gaudin Porsche and Paul Jarrett for giving us a tour and the history of the dealership. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, and hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please subscribe and hit that like button. Chris Honda out. Thank you.